Hi guys, I'm Brianna.
Hi, I'm Fatima.
And today we're going to talk about leasehold improvements. But before we get into that, I'm going to give you guys a quick background just so you can have a general understanding. So currently, IMLO is in a saturated market and they have decided that they want to continue to make profits. And to do that, they need to be somewhere where they can make profits. So they've decided that they're going to go to this new location and try it out. Since they are just trying it out, they decided that they're going to lease the building instead of buying the building so that they don't have to make any real commitments to being at that location. Next, Fatima will explain to you guys what leasehold improvements are, just so you can have a general understanding before we continue.
So leasehold improvements are any improvements that's done to a leased property, plant, or equipment. For example, there are alterations, remodeling, or renovations. Basically, they're like structural changes that you make to a leased property so that it's more suitable or more useful for the company's needs. And in terms of the lessee, they actually gain benefit from the use of these improvements because the improvements are treated like business assets and used by the company for their business needs. And upon the termination of the lease, they become the property of the landlord.
Yes, so the initial contract that they signed had a 4-year term and it had 3 5-year options to renew. The first option that they had to renew would be for the current lease price, and the second and third option would be for whatever the market is at that point. So IMLO ended up doing improvements to the building that were worth $3 million, and they estimated that those improvements would last for about 15 years.
And the question we're going to address today is, how do you recommend amortizing the leasehold improvements using new lease rules for all new leases? And then first, we'll actually present how the company's CFO and the CEO believes the improvements should be amortized. And then we'll present our solution to the same question, followed by our supporting evidence.
So first, the CFO believed that the improvement should be amortized over the life of the initial lease term. And the initial lease term was 4 years. He believed this because they weren't for sure if they were going to keep the property any longer than 4 years. So they didn't want to lose an investment if they weren't going to end up renewing.
And the CEO's proposed treatment is to amortize the improvements over their entire useful life of 15 years instead of 4 years. She actually bases her proposed treatment on a marketing research that the company has done before leasing the building. And according to this research, there's a high chance that the company will be successful at the new location, and they'll probably have to extend the term of the lease for multiple years after the initial term of 4 years.
Yes, so we base our research on the current guidance of the ASC, which can be found under section 840. So the guidance currently states that leasehold improvements should be amortized over the shorter of their useful life or a term that includes required lease renewals that are reasonably assured at the date of the leasehold improvements are purchased. So I just want to point out the required lease renewals part, just for future reference.
And our proposed treatment is to actually amortize the improvements over a 4-year
term. The useful life of the improvements is 15 years, and since the current lease term says that the improvements can be amortized over the shorter, the only required treatment right now is the 4 years. So that would be the shorter of the two, which is why we propose that they amortize them over that 4-year term. So the basis for our position is based on the current guidance, just because the guidance states that it should be over the shorter of a required lease term or the useful life, and the useful life is 15 years, whereas the required lease term is 4 years. Next, we're going to talk about the pending guidance that's going to take effect in 2018 for public companies and 2019 for non-public companies. And what it's basically going to say is that the leasehold improvements should be amortized over the shorter of the useful life of those leasehold improvements and the remaining lease term. And this can be found in section 842 of the ASC currently. So basically, the pending guidance is simplifying what the current guidance says So it's shortening the second half of the current guidance. So as a reminder, the second half of the current guidance stated that a term that includes required lease renewals that are reasonably assured at the date of the leasehold improvements are purchased. So the pending guidance is going to replace that all with the remaining lease term.
And the amortization under the pending guidance is actually going to be the same way as before. And when the company amortizes in 2017, they will go by the current guidance as of that date. And when the pending guidance takes effect on December 16 of 2018, they will have 3 more years left in their lease agreement that they would have to amortize for.
Yes. So next we are going to actually talk about our implications on MLO's financial position. And I am going to let Fatima start that.
And when the company amortizes the improvements over their remaining lease term of 4 years, it's going to have some effects on company's financial position. And they will have shorter amortization periods. This is because they're actually amortizing over a smaller number compared to a larger number like 15. So this is going to produce larger annual amortization expenses. And overall, the net income is going to be lower on the company's balance sheets.
So just a visual representation of what she just explained. So the $3 million of improvements, and if they use a straight line depreciation, then you would divide that $3 million by 4 years, which would give you $750,000. And that amount would be your amortization expense and your accumulated amortization for each of the 4 years. So the journal entry would be as shown on the screen. And for our conclusion, we would just like to say that we believe that MLO should go with what the CFO proposed, just because of the current guidance that states that it would be the shorter of the useful life or the required lease term. And the only term that was required was the 4-year period.
And the company will always have to go by what the current ASC guidance says when amortizing the improvements.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.